Alrighty folks, so when you think about a spout, each teapot's going to be different, but for those of you that might have some paper of some kind, whether it's something I gave you or something you have at home, you may play with rolling a piece of paper into some sort of cone, and then if you need to, you can lop it off somewhere just to figure out what size spout that you need. So for mine, I already know I kind of want it like a short fat thing because I'm going to be applying it somewhere up here. For that, I know I'm going to need a slab that's cut to a certain curve, and that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to draw it out first in case I screw up, because sometimes I do that. Alrighty, so here's what I did. If you can see it right in there, I put a little mark where I know I'm going to cut this after I unfold it, and be careful because sometimes your slab's going to want to start to split on you because it's getting dry. So remember, clay loves compression. Compress the heck out of it if you need to, just so it doesn't fight you. This here, that's going to be the end of my spout. That's not going to stay that thick. That's horribly thick compared to the rest of the teapot. So I will be pinching that out. I might even add a coil at the end of it if for some reason I screw up and I pinch it too thin. But that's what I'm going to start working on now, is actually slipping and scoring and attaching pieces and cutting it to fit. So it's using the same techniques you already know how to do for the body of the teapot, but now we're going to apply them to the spout. Okay, so let's say you are ready to put your spout on. I don't know if you can see this or not. So I wanted to give it a little attitude, so I've got it up on a upturned angle. Remember, the top of your spout should usually be higher than the top of your teapot. If I put it way down here, one, it looks really weird. I don't like that at all. That makes me uncomfortable. But I also can't have my liquid level past the end of my spout because everything's going to leak out. So I'm going to put it way up here. I'm going to play with the shape of this yet. I'm not done with it. It's too big and bulky and ugly for something that's going to be very flowy and organic looking by the time I'm all done. But what I need to do is I need to put strainer holes in the front of my teapot. What I mean by that is where I'm going to be putting the spout. So again, I've got this cut. It's very ugly, but it's on an upturned angle. But I want this kind of going at the top end, angled upward. After I tweak it, play with the shape, which I don't need to show you all that because I'm fussy and it might take me a while. But what I need to do is figure out where I'm going to be putting, not necessarily a big opening, because again, that's going to make the wall of this teapot really weak right here. And let's say you actually do put tea in here and you've got tea leaves or something that's floating around, or if you want lemonade and you've got wedges of lemon, you don't want all of that getting stuck in this big hole and then clogging your spout so then you can't get anything out. So instead, we're going to be putting a series of holes. For this one, I'm thinking I'll put about 5. So I'll put 2 on the top here. Let's see if I can mark it a little heavier so you can see it, because I don't know if you can see it, but like right here, and here, and there, and there, and there. So obviously those are way, way, way too small. For some of you, again, those of you that are my kids that maybe took supplies home, you might have something like one of those hole punches. That would be perfect for this if it's the right size. If you don't have one of these, or if it's just too big, you could do something like shoving a pencil through. However, that might be too big. So you might end up doing something like using a needle tool or using the handle of a broken off pen, something that's thinner that you can bore a hole all the way through to the inside of your pot. Now when you do that, really make sure that you support the inside of your piece as you're doing it, because if your clay is softer, this is pretty, not hard, I'd say it's soft leather hard stage, so it's pretty durable. But if you punch too hard, you could crack in between the holes, and that's a whole nother mess that we have to fix. It's not impossible, but it's not fun. Or you could dent this whole thing, and all of a sudden we have to try and pop this back out. And remember, clay has memory, so if you injure it, it's going to remember where the injury is, and then we got to go back, try and fix it, and make it forget. And all is well in the world. So that's what I'm going to do now, is put some holes in my teapot. Here we go. Here, on a side note, before we start, I found an old lathe tool. Why we have a lathe tool, I don't know. Mr. L's got a full-blown wood shop, but not a lathe. So, I'm going to use it because the end, this is going to be the perfect size. So I'm going to stick it in, spin it around, pull it out. Alrighty, there are all the holes to the inside of my teapot. I don't know, can you see daylight? Maybe not. There. Okay, so there are my 5 holes. All good to go, except clean up the edges. Nobody likes sharp pieces of clay. Okay, you guys, so looking into the other camera now. So, as you can see, hopefully that was sped up, but I take my time cleaning up those holes just because if I don't and there's boogers, 1, it's going to be sharp. I might have said that already, so sorry if I did. But 2, you don't want those holes to shrink after this dries, gets fired, we glaze it, and then we fire it again. Because remember, you're using stoneware, or at least that's what I'm using. Some of you out there that aren't my students, if you're using porcelain, or if you're using bee clay or earthenware, all of those clays shrink at different rates and shrink at different percentages. The clay that we're using here is a stoneware. That's about a 15 to 20% shrink rate depending on how thick and how wet it is at the time we start. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're wondering, why is she taking so long just on 5 little holes? That's why. Okay, now I'm going to play around with forming my spout and attaching it. Tip. If you need to cut an angle on your spout, which most of you will, depending on your design, you could get something like a cup from a laundry detergent container and something squishy that you can take and follow the curve and either draw a line or slice right through it. I'm just going to draw a line and then I'm going to cut it with my knife because I don't want to collapse what I've got here. Okay, here I go.